Hey there.
Enjoying with audio. Am I good?
There, yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So I'm trying something a little different today. Different configuration to be a little bit more mobile.
Cool.
Maybe. There we go.
Yeah,
and then this will be the face forward. And then that way all I have to do is kind of angle up and they can kind of see me from the side. I think that might work better.
Yeah. The audio is going through the iPad?
Audio's through the iPad.
Okay. That's fine. It's a Zoom. That's fine. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, I think for upcoming stuff, we may want to think about getting our own mic, like the directional mic. Just because I'm having Dan in, and then the guest chefs for the Lawrence Weeks thing, and then the Student Organization Association wants to have another thing with a guest chef. And if I have Chef Drake come in, because she responded to me that she'll look at her calendar.
Yay.
So, and then if we have Agnes, so if they all come in, we'll need some kind of mic.
I agree. I wish there was, I wonder if the media hub wouldn't be someone that would consult with us on it.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
It's like, why are we trying to figure this out? Like, there's people who do this.
Well, and I'm like, if Extension can do this, we can do this. Come on. No offense intended, but come on.
I've got the PowerPoint ready. You just let me know when you want me to share it and whatever.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to run to the ladies real quick and change my apron too.
Cool. I'm going to get a little snack because I haven't eaten. All right. I think I'm going to replace all of my Tupperware with deli containers.
I love get the thick ones.
Yeah.
They last as long, if not longer.
And they work better. And they stack inside each other. Like, why am I effing around with Pyrex? Or...
Actually, I'm going to change my shoes real quick. I have my snow boots on because I was freezing this morning, but my feet are getting tired. Whew. It is warm up in here. They have the heat on so much. Like, you know, it seems like every other winter I've frozen.
Yeah.
It is. Of course, I've been running around too, but I think it's really warm in here.
Maybe the hood's finally working properly. Maybe that's the difference.
Possibly. Oh, yes. Okay. We made some pickled watermelon radishes, and I think they stink. I think they smell like farts, but Lucas says he likes this smell.
I get my second shot on Wednesday.
Awesome. My mom gets hers on Friday.
Yay. Second or first?
Second. My cousin, who's 3 years younger than me, she had a really rough time with her first one. So she's kind of, yeah, she had to go to bed, had fatigue, achy joints. Just felt kind of cruddy, even on the first one.
I had a headache. I was a little tired, but.
I feel tired today, but I think that's because I kicked my butt last night.
What'd you do?
Strength training.
Mm.
DVD. I've signed up for Join. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
It's awesome. It's very inclusive.
I love
Size, ethnicity, orientation, ability. It's all very inclusive. So
awesome.
Are we ready?
Oh, yeah. There's no one here.
Okay, let me check my mail real quick. Oh, I hope I didn't send out the wrong thing.
I clicked on the link from the email. That's how I got here.
From the one I sent yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Let me make sure I'm not controlling the way. Are you a host? Do I need to make you a host? Maybe
You're the host. Oh, I probably can't see the waiting room.
Oh, hello. Yep, here we go. Come on. There we go. Admit all.
Can you make me a host so I can control this
Yeah.
stuff? Hello, everyone. Hello. We've got everyone coming in here. Sorry for the delay. We realized, technology. It's fun. We're all living that life.
There we go. Now you should be host.
Now
Lily.
I'm the host. Now I'm in charge. Welcome. I'm Lillian Brislin, the director of the Food Connection. If you haven't met me before, hello from my upstairs office. And we've got Chef Tanya Whitehouse here today. We are doing our Cooking with Polenta, Lots of Ways cooking class. Let's do a little icebreaker just so we can see who's in the room. If you want to put your name, maybe where you're coming to us from in Kentucky, and whether or not you've had polenta before, if this is your first time or if you're a polenta pro. So let's see that in the chat. We can get to know each other. I'm not a polenta pro. I'm a polenta novice. I've made it a couple times. I enjoy eating it. Hi, Hazel. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Hazel. Hazel has been to lots of our events.
Oh, wonderful.
She and her family.
And other folks joining, and maybe y'all don't have access to the chat, and that's all right. So I will turn it over to Chef T to introduce us to what we're doing today. And Tanya, just let me know when you want me to put the PowerPoint up.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and start with that, Lily, and then we'll get that done so we can. And good morning, Lori, or good afternoon now. Hi, thank you for joining us. Yeah, Lily, if you'll go ahead and put that up. Here we go. We're going to share the screen. I do have just a few slides to start with, just to introduce what we're doing today. If you aren't very familiar with polenta, this will be just a very broad and general introduction. Okay, and next slide. First of all, though, we do want to welcome Lori from Community Farm Alliance, and they are the ones who have provided the grants for all of these classes, the train the trainers, the recipe videos, which we have one up now, and we're going to send out the announcement about that throughout this year and into the growing season. So I just want to thank CFA for their generous support of all of this in trying to have people cooking more and cooking more with local seasonal ingredients. And next slide. I keep hitting it as if I can control. All right, so welcome to the class today. One thing I want to do is that this should be fun. This should be your pace. I want this class to meet your needs. So take your time. A lot of times I'll go through quickly. I mean, I'm slowing down for me, but I keep a certain pace so that I can get demos done and then respond to what questions or concerns that you have. So you don't have to go at my pace. I will do something and then I'll kind of wait for you to catch up. And we've got a lot going on today. I don't know how many of you want to join me for both recipes, because that's a lot of polenta, or if you want to just do one or the other. We're going to start with the kale and polenta soup, and then we're going to go to the polenta with sauteed veggies and egg. So if you're just doing one, that's going to be our agenda today. I'll go over everything several times. If you need me to dice an onion again, that's fine. This is not as chop heavy as some of our previous classes, so I think everybody should be able to kind of keep up better than in some of our classes where there is a lot of chopping. But again, just relax and have fun. All right, next slide.
Should be there.
There we go. Okay. So what is polenta? Polenta is basically just cornmeal. Now you may see bags that are labeled polenta. That's just a little bit more coarsely ground. This is our local Weisenberger stone ground cornmeal, and this is the yellow. It is, stone ground is a lot coarser. I have some examples. I don't know that you'll be able to see this in this little camera, but that's why I put the pic on the slide. But this is the stone ground cornmeal, so it's a lot coarser, and this is more akin to what you would look for a polenta texture that you want to chill and slice later. The coarser texture works best for that. This is, this is more of a polenta, like a coarse ground. This is the stone ground. This is the Weisenberger. It's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit finer. A lot more like cornmeal like you might find on a grocery store shelf. Those might actually be still milled, so those might be even finer than this. But the finer your cornmeal is, when you cook it for polenta, the more creamy. You're gonna get that creamier, softer texture. So although the creamy texture will work if you kind of reduce your amount of liquid for some of the applications, it works best if you use the finer grain for creamier applications and the coarse ground for the harder applications. It came from northern Italy, and not only just corn, but it's often made with other grains like buckwheat, white corn, and you can even do a lot of these applications with oats, with cream of wheat, farina. You could do it with chickpea flour. Some of the hard applications you could do with chickpea flour. So this is a great foundational recipe that you could do with a lot of things you might already have in your pantry, a lot of inexpensive ingredients in your pantry. And then we'll go into the preparations next. So next slide. Just want to talk about the etymology just a bit. This stuff is interesting to me. I don't know if it will be to you, but it comes from a word I'm hearing myself. Let me see.
You unmuted the laptop.
Accidentally. There we go. I mistakenly unmuted one laptop. It comes from an umbrella term for any hulled or crushed grain. So that's why it includes buckwheat and all of those other things. Derives from Latin word for pollen, which is kind of interesting, which means a fine flour. So that's where we get polenta from. You might have heard terms like mush or things like that. This is sort of the same thing. It's versatile. So you can use it in a bowl, which we're going to see today. You can slice it or use it as a side, like a starchy side. You could use it as a base or a bed to build other things up on, kind of like mashed potatoes are used that way. You can slice it and grill it. I did manage to kind of hack a wee bit of grilling. I'll show you that. I'm not going to show you how I did it because that was messy, but I can show you the end product. You can punch it out into shapes and fry it or bake it. You can make polenta fries and even croutons. And right here, the one thing I didn't do because it's so involved is that's Lydia Bastianich has a Savoy cabbage and gorgonzola torta made with polenta. That sounds absolutely phenomenally delicious. So I'm kind of sad I wasn't able to include that today, but there's just too much to do with polenta. I had to really kind of narrow it down some. So next. All right, so today, like I said, we're gonna do the kale and polenta soup. We're gonna bowl like a pro, and I'll show you how to do that. It's gonna look a little something like in this picture right here. I'm gonna show you a salad, yes, a salad, and then pizzetta and fries. Just those are just gonna be a quick demo at the end. I can send out those recipes if you're interested after as a follow-up. Okay, and I think we have one more final slide. Right, so before we start this, I'm gonna make just a plain polenta in the first recipe, and then we're gonna make a soup out of the second one. So that's a little bit different. But polenta does take a little bit of babysitting. You have to prevent it from scorching. So you have to bring your liquid up to a boil, add your corn, and then we're going to really kind of take care of it for about 20, 25 minutes. So it's good to, if you're gonna do something with polenta, like go ahead and get that started, but do it in a place where you can kind of do all your mise en place and keep an eye on it at the same time so that you can stir it or give it a little whisk from time to time to make sure it's not sticking and scorching on the bottom. How do you know polenta is done? Well, the Italians like to say that if you can stand a wooden spoon up in the middle of it and it stays upright, then your polenta is done. But I'm a kind of an old school, bit of a purist chef. I think you should just take a bite of it. So you just get a tasting spoon, you take a bite, you make sure it doesn't have a raw taste, you make sure that the corn isn't crunchy in your mouth, and you make sure that it's seasoned appropriately. So we'll do that at the end too. Don't let me get away with not doing that. And I think that's everything for right now, unless anyone has questions. If there are questions in the chat, or you want to just unmute and shout out. All right. So well, I'm gonna get the mise together for all of this. If for the soup, I'll go over it very quickly. You do need the 1 cup of polenta and 7 cups of either water or stock. I did list milk amongst the ingredients because you can add about a 1/2 cup of milk if you're using water. That does make it a little more creamy. We have 1 15-ounce can of cannellini beans, or hopefully if you bought dried, you went ahead and cooked those per the instructions. I've got them halved right now. I just poured out the can, rinsed them off, drained them. 1/2 are in the bottom of this bowl because we're gonna mash those, and 1/2 are still in my strainer because we're gonna leave those whole. We also have, I think we should have an onion. Yeah, all right. We have a small onion, some carrots, celery. So this is our very standard basic mirepoix right here, our aromatics, and a couple of cloves of garlic. You have a little bit of oil to cook in. Cooking oil is fine, canola, even a light olive oil, a little bit of tomato paste. I get the kind in the tube because it lasts a lot longer. You don't have to freeze it like you do the kind in the can. And then we have about 6 ounces of kale, which is quite a lot, but it will cook down. A little bit of crushed pepper, that's optional. And I've got some fresh herbs here to get so I can have thyme and rosemary at the same time. I get the little poultry blend or the roasting blend, sometimes they're called, so that I have the option of both. And of course, salt and pepper. I've got the salt right here. Pepper's over by the stove. And then we'll go over equipment. So so that everybody has time to get these things together. You need your cutting board and some kind of chef's knife, hopefully a nice sharp one. You also need a discard bowl or a garbage bowl, something that you can throw your scraps in without having to run to the garbage can every time. You want to have some small prep bowls or containers. It could be, you know, yogurt cups if that's what you got, but some kind of thing to store all the veggies as you chop them so that they are off your board and you have a clean space to focus. You will need a large sauce pot, or I said a small stock pot, so something that it's at least like a 2 to 3 quart capacity pan. You need a whisk and some kind of stir. So that could be a large metal or wooden spoon. We can't have wooden spoons here, but we have these high heat silicone spatulas. And then some kind of grater. If your Parmesan is not, let me slow down. If your Parmesan is not already grated, then you need something to grate that with. You can also even use a vegetable peeler, which you need for your carrot as well. Okay, and some tasting spoons, since we are gonna taste this at the end. So the first thing we want to do is start getting our meats together, because this is a soup that's all going to cook together. So we want to chop up all our veg. I have everything else measured out. Hopefully this gathering period will allow you to start measuring things out too. If not, just take your time with that. I'll still have to measure some of my spices, my herbs and spices and things like that. Now, if you need me to do both halves of this onion, feel free to stop me, but this is kind of a small one, so I may do both halves anyway. Whenever you are cutting, you want to cut toward your board. You want to wrap the bottom 3 fingers around the handle of your knife and pinch on either side of the metal. You're not holding back here, and you're not putting your finger up on top. That does nothing for stability. I'm always harping on stability and manageability when breaking down veg. You can break down anything if you have those 2 things. So this is the most stable hold. It's at the widest part of the knife, and then that way I can kind of use that part as a fulcrum so that I'm not doing the work, the knife's doing the work. Sometimes I won't even lift the knife from the board. With my other hand, I want to use the Wildcat claw, and that is just all of my fingers tucked under. Don't put your pinky down, don't put your thumb down. That's the first thing that will get cut. And the first thing we want to do is to make sure we have stability, because a lot of our veg will roll around on the board until we get it in a stable position. So the one thing I try to tell, and I feel like I confuse people more often than not, and a lot of people don't even like using this method, but this is how I learned in culinary school, and it is the most efficient way for me to break down an onion. But use your own method. As long as you get a medium dice, then that's the end result we need. So this part that sticks up, that would normally have greens coming out of it, that's our stem. The little hairy part right here is our root. So I almost always cut an onion from stem to root along these little lines that are on the onion itself. I hardly ever cut through what we call the equator. So I'll go from pole to pole, not through the equator. So I'm gonna cut off the stem, or what would be our north pole. I'm gonna cut off the root end, or south. And that gives me a stable surface that I can put the onion down on. Then I can use my claw and cut that in half. And that makes it super easy to take off this papery layer, and then any inside layers that are still leathery or papery that would not be pleasant to eat. And I'm going to toss that in my discard bowl. Everything is pretty much vegetarian today. However, you can add, certainly add animal proteins to these dishes. But for today, I'm trying to keep it 1, inexpensive, and 2, healthy. And I don't know, I feel like I've been overindulging during the pandemic, so I'm looking forward to some lighter dishes myself. Okay, so when you start the dice, you have it on that stable side, you're gonna pull it kind of toward you on the cutting board, and then I'm gonna cut toward the root end. It works best that way because the root helps to hold everything together. So if you can identify that end, just keep that away from your knife with each of these cuts we do. We're going to do 3 different directions. So we're going to be like going horizontal first. So I'm going to put my claw on top of the onion because I'm going to use my knife, Let me turn this just slightly. I'm going to use my knife parallel to the board. So I'm actually laying it flat on the board right now. And then I'm just going to lift it up about 3/8 of an inch. This is a tiny onion. And I'm going to cut not all the way through. I'm going to leave a little bit attached on the end. I'm going to lift up another 3/8 or so and do that same thing. So I have 3 slices that are still attached. You may need to do more than 3 if your onion is larger than this tiny little one. And now I'm going to turn it toward me because I'm just using the tip end of my knife and I'm just going to go straight down. 3/8 of an inch slices so that we have little boards now, little sticks, I should say. We had boards, now we have sticks. And all of those are still attached. And then I'm going to turn that back to where it was. So it's just like side, out, and back to the side. And I'm going to cut across those sticks on the open end. And that way I get a nice medium dice. And never fear if you are not at this point yet, because I'm going to do it all over again. And then at the end, you can just chop it. You want to, if you can tell where this has, it's kind of dark there, but there's a little bit of the core left, a little bit of the root. I'm just going to toss that away. I don't want that. That'll be hard to eat, be tough. So that little end piece, I'm just chopping up by itself. All right, I'm going to get that off my board, clear my board, and start all over again. So for this half, same thing, pull it to the edge. I'm going to go a little faster this time. Make a cut, not quite, but all the way through. If you go all the way through, that's fine. It's just those slices will kind of slide around. If you're not comfortable with that, just cut the separate slices. I'm going to turn it so the attached end is away from the part I'm cutting. Making slices, use those little lines in there as a guide, and then turn it back to where it was and slice across all those sticks. Perfect medium dice. And cut around that core, toss that core out, and finish up by chopping up the end. I'm going to move on quickly to the celery. Mine's without water. It's getting a little wilted. So don't pay attention to that. Just pay attention to the method. So I'm getting rid of the leaves. The leaves have certain uses, but they can be bitter. We're not going to use them today. I leave this little stick on, even though there's that joint there. It kind of helps to hold as a handle. I'm going to take off this thick white part. This is often where a lot of scarring occurs, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to use this as a little handle, and I'm just going to pierce the celery and drag my knife. And then not all the way up because this is a smaller piece, but I'm going to divide that so that you have kind of about a 3/8 or so small dice. And then all you have to do is cut across that. So just one stalk of celery. Celery is our bitter element. Carrot is our sweet element. So we don't want to overwhelm all of it. We just want everything to balance. And then I'm going to cut up that little extra end. And I'm tossing the joint into our stock scrap. And get that off my board. And then finally we have the carrot, and in my kit I've left this, the peeler. Don't forget that peelers are blades. Some of our peelers we've probably had for years. But if you have a new one, just don't forget that that is a blade. That's why it takes everything off so smoothly. Just be careful. Again, cut away from yourself. I usually cut onto my board because you don't want to hold the carrot over the garbage can while you're peeling, even though that's really efficient. If you drop that carrot, then that's gone. I'm going to cut off the end. This is a tiny little carrot, so I'm probably just going to slice most of it because it's going to give us a tiny little dice. And then I'm going to have this little piece. We have more carrots coming later for the veggie saute. So just give that a slice. If your carrot is really big, then you want to maybe cut it into quarters before you slice. you can use all the carrot and you don't have to break it down too much. And now we have our garlic. Now I said use 2 cloves. If you are the kind to use the jarred garlic that's already minced, and I would say about a, depending on your tolerance for garlic, I would say a tablespoon, but you can start anywhere from a teaspoon. But if you have the fresh cloves, just pop a couple off of the head, pull off any of the paper to get to them. Actually, let me get rid of that paper. And then put them on a very stable side, put your knife on top, and then just whack with the heel of your hand or with a fist, and that will pop that paper open so that you can get the clove out. And the same thing over here. I want to point out that you have these little woody pieces on here on the end. Again, kind of use that like a handle. Cut toward that. We're just going to slice, chop it, and throw away that little woody piece. And then we get to do the fun move where we put the tip of our knife down. We put our hand on top of the spine, fingers up, and then you just start lifting and lowering your knife and rocking it through. And our goal here is to get the pieces about 1/8 of an inch or smaller, but most importantly, that everything's around the same size so that it cooks at the same rate. We're just about there. You have to maybe knock it off your knife, move it around on the board a little. Yeah, you can see that well enough to get the gist. All right, so if you have large kale, you will need to strip that off the stem. I have this baby kale that I got from Elmwood Stock Farm this weekend. I don't know if you're aware, but the Lexington Farmers Market is still open every Saturday. They're supposed to be open this Saturday. I don't, you know, bless them. It's going to be pretty cold. But got this from Elmwood. That's also where a lot of our ingredients came from today. Also found some lovely things at Salad Days. So I'll try to go over where I sourced everything. So our kale today comes from Elmwood, and I am just going to leave this like this because this is this beautiful purple kale. And if there are stems that really stick out that bug you, you might want to just knock those off. But that's all you have to do with the baby kale. With the large kale, you just hold the stem and then strip. And then you may want to chop those leaves up a little bit. So does anybody have the large kale? Any concerns with that?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. All right, then. I'll give you a minute. Let's go ahead and I'm going to shift this camera just a bit so you can see what I'm doing over here, hopefully. Might need to pull you in a little closer.
I have the large kale. What did you say you should do? Strip it off the stems?
Yeah, you hold the stem with one hand, and then you just take your other hand, kind of form a ring and pull, and you should be able to kind of strip the stem or kind of pull it off the stem.
Okay.
Like you're taking, you know, when you take the fluffy bits off your notebook, wire-bound notebook paper, that process.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, I've always tried to, I've struggled to find a way to describe that motion. All right. Okay. Yeah. Now we'll get up in this pan. All right. I'm going to turn my heat on medium high. That's usually where we saute. About a 7 or so if you have numbers. And then about, I put it about 3/4 of the way up on my little gauge on the gas stove here. We want to get our pan hot first. I've got a little bit of olive oil here. Like I said, you could use cooking oil. You just want to get the pan hot so that your oil's not getting hot as you're heating your pan. This especially has a low smoke point, so I don't want it sitting there getting ready to smoke as the pan gets hot. I've got all of my chopped veggies right there by the pan. I don't know, here we go. Right there in a stack so that I can add them as I want. We're gonna add all our aromatics first. Then we are going to add the tomato paste. And then finally, we will add the polenta and the veg. I'm sorry, tomato paste and the kale, kind of wilt the kale. And then we add the polenta and the veg stock. I have veg stock today. If you have water, that's perfectly fine. So I'm gonna kind of feel my, oh, I don't feel a lot of heat coming out yet. I might need to turn up a little bit. And in regard to this timing, we're gonna put this on and then I'm gonna put it on a back burner so that we can go on to the next recipe. So this can sit there. I think it recommends cooking for like an hour, hour and a half. That seems like an extenuated period of time to cook this soup, but because everything's already cooked in it, except for the polenta, which normally takes about 25 minutes. So we're gonna push it to the back, let it sit. We'll keep an eye on it as we cook the polenta for the next recipe. I'm gonna pour in just enough oil. I think usually you're told about 2 tablespoons, but I kind of eye it and pour in just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And the way you can tell your pan is plenty hot is that your oil shimmers as soon as it hits the pan. So we do have a shimmer going on here, so that's plenty hot. When you add everything, I'm gonna go over this many times. I'm gonna start with the onions, carrots, and celery first. I'm not gonna put the garlic in yet. When you add it in, you wanna get close to the oil, kind of maybe contrary to what you might be comfortable with, but if you hold it far up, you might splash oil on yourself. So we're gonna do carrots, celery, and onion. So that's your mirepoix, your very traditional French mirepoix first. And you want it moving around in there. Saute does mean to jump. We'll do that too, because I can't remember which camera gets recorded when we do this. Okay, so this is a nice sizzle. If you are browning or if you are smoking, you're too hot, you want to turn that down just a little. In fact, I am really starting to sizzle. It's okay if it takes on a little bit of color, but we're really just kind of trying to sweat the vegetables at this point. Somewhere around 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4, depending on how high you have it up. Your veggies should give off some of their water, and you may see them take on a little bit of color. A golden brown is fine, just at the edges is fine. That's just the sugars concentrating and caramelizing. Your celery is going to pop. It's going to be, I don't know if you can see how much mine, the green is just popped out. That's the cells in the plant. There's a coating on them that sort of dissolves once heat applies, and that way you can see more of the chlorophyll. That's why green veggies tend to just go bam, bright green when you first cook them. Of course, then they lose their chlorophyll if you overcook them and turn drab. My onions are already starting to turn translucent. At that point, you can add your garlic. Just be very careful if you've got your heat on, going that opposite direction. If you've got your heat on, I'm gonna add all that garlic, those 2 cold cloves, and stir it around really well. If you're getting just a wee bit of color on the bottom of your pan, that's fine. You just don't want it to turn completely brown. So let me grab my pot here. So this is what I'm looking like right now. And I'm gonna stir pretty vigorously now that I have the garlic in. You don't want garlic to burn. It's very acrid. It's super bitter once it burns. You just have to kind of start over. Okay, I'm gonna turn my heat down a little bit just to add my tomato paste. And then we're gonna add the kale. Scrape this out of here. It's about a teaspoon. Yes, tablespoon, sorry, tablespoon of tomato paste. And sort of let that soften and coat the vegetables. This is your acidity. It's gonna give us nice flavor. And then toss in the bunch of kale, just as is. Just take handfuls of it and throw it in. It may overwhelm your pot at first, but it'll certainly will down. Just make sure to keep stirring. Now you may get a little bit of browning on the bottom. That's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add some salt at this point on this wilted kale and to all these veggies. We're gonna start seasoning now. So I don't know if you can see how mine's starting to kind of brown on the bottom right here. That's perfectly fine. That's just a little bit of what the French call fond or fond. It's the sugars and everything kind of concentrating. So I'm gonna put in a little bit of my stock now, just so that doesn't burn. And then I'm gonna whisk in. Now is when you grab your whisk. Now don't get rid of your spoon or your spatula because we still wanna, the whisk only gets certain parts. The whisk is great for breaking up clumps of things and incorporating air, but it's not great about making sure that the entire surface of the bottom of your pot is clear. So hang on to your spoon or spatula, grab your whisk, and we can turn this up a little bit. It's okay if this liquid comes to a boil. That'll get the corn cooking right away. But you want to start whisking and just let the corn fall in a slow stream. You'll see this, we'll do this again with the second dish. Now, this is called a soup. It's going to turn out just a wee bit thick because of the cornstarch in the corn and also because of the mashed beans we're going to add in just a moment. So actually, I'm going to leave that there. That's half of my stock. And I'm going to come back over here and we're going to mash those beans. So I don't have a potato masher with me at the moment. So I'm using kind of a meat tenderizer. You could do it with a fork. You could do it with the back of a heavy spoon. But I'm just going to take half the beans and just start smushing. So that we're making almost like if you've ever made any kind of thickener, like a roux or a panada by putting milk or water on bread as a thickener, or if you've used rice as a thickener, this is kind of the starches in the beans. We're breaking open all of those starch cells so that they will help thicken our soup. Oh, I'm coming up to a boil already. I don't know if you guys are. I'm going to turn that down just a little. Give it a whisk. Make sure that polenta doesn't stick. Oh, and it's trying to. Okay, I'm gonna turn that way down. So yeah, you do have to kind of babysit polenta as you cook. I'm gonna add the rest of my stock so that this doesn't scorch. And it'll pull that temp down. Actually, I'm not gonna add all of it. It's supposed to be 7 cups to this 1 cup of cornmeal. Now, that's a good consistency. It's not sticking to the bottom. Now I'm gonna finish squishing these beans. You can, I use white beans for a lot of things, especially in vegetarian or vegan cooking. If you need a thickener, if you need something as a protein replacement in different dishes, I love to use white beans. All right, so I just took those squished beans and I'm gonna add those in. And whisk again to break up all those beans. And then we're gonna add the last of the cannellini. Now you can use any kind of, actually you can use any kind of bean you like. I love cannellinis because they're like kidney beans. They have a thick skin, but a real creamy texture inside. So they hold up really well. And they're just one of my favorite beans. especially for Italian cooking. So that is pretty much it. You can bring that up. You want it to bubble just a tiny bit and then turn it way, way down, the lowest setting on your range, and just let that cook, stirring the bottom. You may not need the whisk so much now, but I would keep mine to the side just in case. And we're gonna switch this out. So if you are just making the soup, then you're almost done for the day. You want to season it. Oh, if you're gonna add your fresh herbs, or you could use a little bit of dried herb into that. I'll show you how to do that. So we're gonna move this back here. All right, so doing fresh herbs is wonderful. I think when you start looking in the spring, a lot of the things I'm using today, you'll find carrots, you'll find leafy greens, you'll find fresh herbs first, sprouts. We're gonna garnish a lot of things with sprouts. And even some vendors will have cornmeal. I know Elmwood Stock Farm has some, and I've seen it at other booths. If you have purchased cornmeal at the farmer's market or seen it or gotten into the CSA, feel free to tell us where. I am just stripping off a few thyme leaves here. Maybe about a teaspoon's worth. Same thing on the rosemary. And you just strip. You just hold the stem and strip. Woody herbs like this, we want to remove the stem. It's hard, it's rough, it doesn't taste good. So you just want the leaves off the woody stemmed herbs. So again, just hold and strip, just like we did with the kale, the large kale. Winter kale is marvelous. You know, we have kale almost year round now. And in the winter though, it just takes on a sweet quality. It doesn't quite have the bitterness that kale grown in hotter temperatures does. Super sweet, especially this, even the large stuff like you have will be much sweeter. All right, so I'm just going to pull these together. I'm gonna kind of bunch them up. You can't roll these up like a soft leaf, these little needles, but I'm just gonna use my claw still got the claw, keep, and kind of use my knuckles as a guide where my knife needs to fall, and just slowly edge my fingers back, and I'm just mincing up the rosemary. Oh, that smells delightful. Rosemary is such a nice winter smell. All right, so that's minced. We have that ready to go. I'm gonna put that in a little container here. We're gonna throw this in at the end. You always wanna throw, almost always.
Ooh, Laura gave us a shout out for Susanna Lean with Salamander Springs Farm. She does a lot of really great staple crops. I know she does beans too, so. Awesome. Some folks down there in the Brea area.
Perfect. So you could do probably almost this whole dish by going to the farmer's market or by using a CSA there. I'm gonna switch this out. And we're gonna go into the next recipe. Now, one bit of caution about the next recipe. Let me turn that, I'm turning that all the way down, my soup. So we're gonna cook the polenta first, but you also, if you're adding the egg on at the end, you will need, if you're poaching it, you will need a poaching well. So at some point in this, if you're just doing 1 or 2, you just need a small pot of water. I've just got like a little 2 to 3 quart pan, halfway full of water. I'm gonna put my vinegar in once it's hot. So as in regard to timing, we'll do the polenta first, then we're gonna saute the veg, and then we're gonna cook the egg last so it's nice and hot. But your water will need to be ready. It'll need to be boiling so you can turn it down to the appropriate simmer for your egg. Just a bit of caution. So if you're moving on with me to the second recipe, or if you're just doing the second recipe, let's go over that kit. Okie dokie. So let me get these. These are our beautiful little microgreens. I put them in here because I want, sometimes I get these things and I'm like, oh, that'll be perfect. And then I forget when I'm on camera, I get to going and I don't watch what I'm doing. So that's going to be our garnish. Now for the veg itself, I got these beautiful, just adorable honey nut squash. They're like tiny little butternuts. They're called honey nut. And then these tiny little acorn squash. We just halved them and used a scoop to get the seeds out of the bowls, coated them with oil, salt, and pepper, and roasted. We roasted at 400. These are tiny, so they did not take very long. But here's where this is what you end up with, itty bitties. And then you just take a paring knife, pull the peel off. With acorns, you can see why people, if you peel acorns, you can see why people just kind of stuff the halves because the peel is tough. You do need to remove it. And it's kind of hard because of all these ridges. But once you pre-cook them, it's wonderful to get all of that off. And then chop everything up. So we have those already chopped up over here. So I'm saving a step on that. If anybody needs me to walk through that, I certainly can. I have some more carrots over here. Have a little bell pepper, not quite seasonal, but just for some brightness in flavor, some brightness in color. Cabbage, we have tons of cabbage right now. And then from Salad Days Farms, we got a watermelon radish, and our student Lucas pickled this yesterday. This is just a quick refrigerator pickle. It's a wonderful way to preserve the radish if you're wanting to use, you know, if you don't use a lot of radish at once, we're going to use it twice today. So I'll give you lots of ideas for using. Also, another winter radish is a black radish, and Elmwood Stock Farm has those. So yes, radishes are not just the red ones, and they're not just the ones that we put in our salads in the summer. So I've got a little garlic. I do have my egg, and I have a soup cup for that egg for poaching. Now you don't have to poach. I'm just going to show you that method. Salt and pepper, a little bit of vinegar for the poaching well or the poaching water. And then I also suggested a little smoked paprika. This is just one of my favorite ingredients here. All right. I'm going to get myself 4 cups of water. And that's going to be going into 1 cup of cornmeal. Get my big sauce pot for that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the water in and bring that up to a boil. So turn it up on high. I want to make sure I'm turning the right burner up here. I don't want to turn my soup up on high. Give you a little view of what we're doing here. And I'm gonna grab a couple other things. I'll be right back.
Tanya, since we can hear you, we have someone who picked up watermelon and black radishes at the Frankfurt Farmers Market Saturday. Those sound delicious. And she's asking what you pickle the watermelon radishes with.
We used a recipe, and I love it. It's a book called 6 Seasons. So it divides the growing season up into 6 seasons. It might be in my pile right now. I could probably, no, it's right here. So it's a book by Joshua McFadden. And this is what I go by because he has a section that is basically a grid. So if you have all these different vegetables, he tells you, he has 2 base brines, 1 hot, 1 cold. And he goes through, I'm going to try to find the grid real quick. Here we go. So here's all of the different pickles he's made. So you have the basic brine recipe over here. And then here's the grid. So this is all of the cold brine veggies. These are all of the hot brine veggies. Radishes fall under the cold brine, although I have used a hot brine for them as well. It does make them stink a little bit more. All those sulfur compounds get released that way. But you can use any, even the joy of cooking has a quick pickling liquid. So it's basically just a blend of vinegar, maybe a little water, sugar, and often some spices or bay leaf or garlic or a hot chili pepper. It's just up to you the way you like to flavor it. So there are all sorts of ways to do quick pickles, and it's a wonderful way. It doesn't indefinitely pickle or preserve the veg, but it will give you, it'll extend the life of it for about 3 to 4 weeks if you keep it in the fridge. A wonderful question. Those black radishes are beautiful too, if you slice them very thin, and they've got quite a nice heat to them. So it's nice to blend them with a lot of like the sweet root veg that we have available now. All right, so I've got my 1 cup of cornmeal. And I'm just bringing that water up to heat. And I've got a little bit of salt here. So we're gonna set that aside. Once that boils, I'll show you. So I've kind of got my camera in the middle. And we'll do a little bit of chopping until that comes up to a boil, just to keep things going. So I will start with the, we'll start with the cabbage, because we haven't done that yet. And then we'll go to the pepper, and then we'll move down to the carrots and the garlic, because we have done those before. All right, let me get things off. You gotta have a clear board. I need to do what I say. All right, so for the cabbage, I've already cut it into a quarter. Cabbage, you know, whereas like kale wilts down, cabbage just seems to get bigger and bigger the more you cut it. So this is a tiny little one. I've just cut it into a quarter. It still has a core right here, and I'm just gonna cut out that core by going on an angle. And then I talk about manageable, right? This is kind of big. So if you, especially if you have smaller hands, people helping you, trying to get people interested in cooking, you may want to cut it down into an eighth. And that way you can just slide. Let me just angle this again. It's not working. Okay, we'll just wait for the water. Slide the knife. I'm using my knuckles as a guide. I'm just sort of chopping it up. You could chop it into squares as well. If you wanted to cut it into slices, just like we did the other veggies, and then cut the slices into sticks, and then cut across those sticks, and that gives you a chop. I'm just gonna, that's all I need is this one little eighth. I'm gonna put that into a prep container. My water's almost there. Again, I have my water up on high. Gonna put about a teaspoon of salt into the water once we add the polenta. And in fact, I'm boiling. If you are not, that's fine. I'm gonna show you briefly how to do this. So I've got my polenta here. I've got my whisk. I'm gonna start whisking as I let the cornmeal fall kind of in a light stream. So this just is to try and prevent any lumps from forming. If you just dump it all in at once, then it gets hot and steamy and it wants to cling together. So you want to use your whisk to break up those pieces, and you sort of use a gentle stream to help keep the clumps from forming in the first place. And if your water is good and hot, then you will already start to see bubbles again, even as you add. Okay, that's all of my cornmeal. I just want to make sure to get lumps mixed out. And I'm getting bubbles, and that is too hot. So I'm going to turn way down to low, the very lowest setting. And you'll see me. I'll come back over here. I'll whisk. I'll use the spatula to clear off the bottom, and again. Now, if you're, especially with an electric stove, it may take a moment for your boiling to die down. So you want to keep an eye on it while it does that. This gas stove has a simmer setting on it. That might be the best, especially if you're getting busy with cutting veg and things like that. If you don't have that setting, just turn it down way on low. If you have any kind of like metal plate that you can slide in between, that will deflect some of the heat, or it takes a lot longer for the heat to conduct. And that will lower the heat that's being applied to the polenta, but that's a big ol' extra step. So I'm gonna add that teaspoon of salt. And I'm gonna keep an eye on that one because it is bubbling away, even on the lowest setting. So I'm gonna peel and, oh, I'm gonna do the, let's put this back down. I'm gonna do the pepper next. So just like with the onion, I'm gonna cut off the stem. I'm gonna cut off the end. And we can hang on to those, we can use these. And then the easiest way for me is to make a vertical cut straight down, just in between two of the ribs. Okay, so that I have this opening here. And now that I have that opening, I can slide my knife in. Now cut away from yourself, cut down toward the board, and you're just sort of going around following the inside edge of the pepper, and you're just letting your knife blade flow through, just slide through each of those ribs as you roll it around. And that way you can take out all the ribs and the seed pod all at one time and toss. Now, if there is white pith left, kind of smash your pepper down and slide it along there. And away from yourself. If we prepare, professional chefs, when you prepare raw peppers, you have to cut off all of this sort of texture back here. Now, manageable size, I'm gonna cut that in half, okay? I'm gonna give this a stir. Not sticking yet, so that's great. Now, so you've got a nice rectangle here, so you can cut that into strips. And then cut those strips across. Try to use the same width, so that way you get little squares. And that's a very large dice. I'm gonna do it again. So cut into strips. And cut across those. Now, if you have a really large pepper and these little piles are too big, make them smaller, make it manageable. Stability and manageability will keep you safe and efficient, okay?
Tanya, do you have particular thoughts? I went rogue, and sometimes I do this, and then Tanya's like, "Don't tell her this," but I sometimes make polenta in my pressure cooker, especially if it's going to be the thick kind. I don't know, but I haven't done creamy in the pressure cooker. But do you have strong opinions?
I don't have strong opinion. I've never tried that. I don't do a lot of the like pressure cooking, hot pot or Instapot kind of cooking. I'm too old-fashioned. I love that this is on the stove. I love that I have to kind of babysit it. I love that I have a little conversation with it, that it bubbles up at me and I go, no, 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 no. You know, I'm too, like, that's why when people talk about no knead bread, I'm like, why wouldn't you want to knead bread? Kneading bread is one of the most meditative things you can do. So I haven't done that yet, but I mean, I'm sure it's a bit like when you talk about making beans in 45 minutes, that to me, that's when I'm like, okay, maybe I'll get a gadget. You know? So if you can reduce polenta to just like what, 10, 15 minutes, what does it take?
Yeah, it's 10 minutes at pressure. Sorry.
Wow. So yeah, that's the advantage right there, is just when you're really super tired and you don't want to wait forever, but you do want to cook something whole grain for yourself. Yeah, which we're kind of at that point, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm tired of cooking.
If you're tired and you like babysitting polenta, imagine the rest of us.
I know, I do. I have complete and total empathy, because it's not even the cooking. Like, I don't mind. Of course, I don't mind the cooking. It's the cleaning up after. I'm like, it's just me. Why do I want to do a whole pile of dishes for just me? So it's nice to get to do this, because then I can share with everybody here and across the hall. I mean, I make them smell it all morning. So I'm just slicing up more carrots like we did before. And I'm gonna mince up a little bit more garlic. And we're just gonna saute that together. I'm actually gonna move my polenta over, again, back burner, and pull up a saute pan that's on your equipment list. And get my saute pan up here. Not gonna turn it on yet, gonna get rid of, we're gonna mince the garlic first. So again, just pop a clove or two off the head, smash them. And this I'm not even gonna mince so much as I'm just gonna slice, because we've got a lot of wonderful veggies going in together. What I was gonna ask is, I said you could use basically about 2 cups of any kind of veggies. What we have, some watermelon and black radishes. What else do we have out there? Did you do something different, or did you do what I had in the recipe? And I'm sorry I'm also making you stop cooking to type it in as well, but you can shout it out.
I haven't seen anything, although
Okay.
I'm going to say it's Tisa. Perhaps it's pronounced Tissa. It says she might try my pressure cooker methods. So here's to the unorthodox amongst us.
As I always say to the students when they used to come in here, that as long as you know, if you want to try a new method, that's fine, as long as it gets you the same results, right?
Yeah.
I don't mind different methods as long as it's the same result. Now, I had some cooks try to convince me that instead of doing the Julia method for boiling eggs, that you could just boil them really hard for 9 minutes, and I'm like, no. You could bounce those eggs off a cutting board, so no. The last thing I'm going to do is just chop up my watermelon radish a little bit more. We've got some big slices here. Aren't they gorgeous? First of all, just that color, that beautiful pink and the green. And now they smell good. When you first open pickled radishes, they do have that sulfur smell, which can be unpleasant, but that's why I open them early, so that dissipates. And then you just get the nice pickle smell, which some people may not like the pickle smell, but I do. I love that. All right, so we're gonna have some wonderful, beautiful color here. Let's turn our saute pan on to medium-high heat. And we're gonna get that hot, and we're gonna make sure we have everything here together. So we're gonna add this last. This is my roasted squash. We've got the peppers, the cabbage, the carrots, the sliced up garlic, and I've got the radishes. So if you have things like broccoli or mushrooms, that's fine. Just slice it up and toss it in here. I've got my water. We will probably go ahead and get the water on. I'm going to turn my water on to boil. So it's just, I'm going to do 1 egg, folks. So I've only got about a quart of water in my pan. If you're doing more eggs, you might need a little bit more because you're going to evaporate some. And then I've got about a teaspoon of just some distilled vinegar. You don't have to have this. All this does is it helps coagulate the protein in your egg. So I'm going to put about a teaspoon in there and turn my water up on boil, because we want bubbles. And then I'll move you over here. And then as soon as we get the saute done, then we can assemble, and I'll show you some other things, other fun things before we go to do with polenta and finish up the dishes. So let's get you as close as we can. And I'll turn this way. Go down just a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit, I have some Kentucky Proud non-GMO expeller pressed canola for those who have concerns about heat processed canola. And as soon as I poured that in, I got the shimmer. So I've got the soup back here. I've got my polenta over there on low, water heating there and sauteing here. And I'm gonna add the peppers, carrots, and cabbage first. I actually made a little bit of a mistake. I thought we had red cabbage instead of green. I'm gonna do a sprinkle of salt to help this release its water and to season it at the same time. There we go, much better. So yeah, I don't know if you saw that. So season this. Cook that down. Now this is a recipe that comes out, well, I mean, we do lots of bowls. It's a great instructional recipe. It's a great foundational recipe. You can do bowls throughout the year. You have to just have 5 different ingredients and you can do bowls, and the ingredients are a base, which is typically starchy, a protein, a sauce, veg, and some kind of garnish. And garnish could be the herbs, the microgreens we're using today. It could be a nut, a seed, an oil, and then sauce is up to you. Our sauce is, today, we don't have like a saucy sauce. But we're gonna add the veggies themselves onto the polenta and then the egg on top of that. So the egg will be our protein and the microgreens will be our garnish. Ooh, I'm a little hot, so you can see I'm getting some browning right away. It's a little too hot, I'm turning down. I'm gonna add a little of the smoked paprika I talked about. If you are going vegetarian and you kind of miss the char of animal protein, that's a good way to kind of get that unctuousness, almost the umami type flavor that we love about animal proteins and grilling them, roasting them, getting that brown flavor. I'm gonna add a pinch of ground pepper. And one more pinch of salt because we have a lot of sweet vegetables here. And now that these are starting to cook some, I can add my garlic and saute that some. It's good to do now that it's kind of dying down. I'm gonna give my polenta a check. Oh yeah, we're nice and thick. Actually, I'm gonna take one of my tasting spoons and taste that, adjust the seasoning, and then I'm just gonna put a lid on it because it's super thick. We'll see if the texture is right. Oh, it tastes like corn. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a wee bit more salt to that and put a cover on it and let it rest. It's always great to let grains rest after you cook them. You can add whatever you like to a finished polenta. You can add cheeses. Sometimes I like to add sun-dried tomatoes, herbs. So let me turn that off. Grab a lid. And my water is almost at a boil. And now that this is almost finished, I'm getting some browning and some wilting on the cabbage. I'm gonna add that cooked squash. You can add the acorn, the butternut. Acorn and butternut. So we've got a lot of nice oranges here. I thought with the kale in the other dish, we could do lots of nice oranges and yellows here. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm gonna give it a little taste, see if we've got that seasoned right. That's perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna move the saute off. And we're gonna do a poached egg. Poached eggs are one of my, well, egg cookery, one of my favorite things to show. Now for poaching, you want, most people say a simmer. And some people will say, don't even let a bubble break the surface very often. But I like a 3-minute poach. So I like to have a few bubbles going, not a lot. I don't know if you can see what's going on here, but I've just got about 3 little tiny bubbles. And then I'm gonna add, I've lost my vinegar, teaspoon of vinegar. Oh, I forgot forgot the radishes. We'll put those in and let them finish up. I have misplaced. Let me just grab the vinegar. Oh, here it is. Okay, so just about a teaspoon of white vinegar, and you've got those bubbles. Now, I always like to have some kind of soup cup, or if you have the little baking boats or something, that's always great to crack your egg into. Because if you crack it right directly into the water, you might break your yolk, and then you have to fish it out. And when you break it into a separate container, you can kind of control all of that. Also, it's a gentler way to ease the egg into the water. You're wanting the protein to coagulate as soon as it hits the water. That's why we put the vinegar in. That's why we have it at this temperature. So I'm gonna lower it in. I'm gonna try to let you see this. Okay, here we go. So I'm lowering the bowl very close to the surface of the water, and I'm sort of just letting the egg fall in. Hopefully it coagulated enough before it hit the bottom. And we're just gonna let that sit there for about 3 minutes. On a traditionally poached egg, some of you like them at all different temperatures. Believe me, I know I worked brunch for 3 years straight. But a traditionally poached egg is the white is set and the yolk is very runny. So while the egg is poaching, let me build the bowl. Then we'll bowl up our soup and we'll garnish everything. And then I'll show you a couple other things before we go. If you have any questions, now is a wonderful time. Let's see, I already have the bowl. Okay. So I'll bowl up the soup. We have a ladle right here. Oh yeah, it's coming out perfect. Oh, I need to taste my soup. Pardon me. Probably need to add a little salt to that soup.
I'm so chilly here at the house. That soup looks like it would be absolutely perfect to just kind of like creamy, warm corn,
creamy,
veggies.
Warm, sustaining, fulfilling. This is food for the soul, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna lift this up. It is a thick soup, so if you're used to something like a porridge or a congee, or so, this is kind of where we're going here. You can thin it if you wanted to add more liquid. And I'm gonna just wipe the edge here. I've got a little bit of parm. Whenever I talk to the students about cheeses, I'm like, you know, cheeses, I don't eat a lot of cheese as much as I love it, but I like to splurge on a good parm or an Asiago. Hard cheeses last longer, and they're so concentrated in flavor that it's a little bit goes a long way. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that on there. And I have some fresh parsley to sprinkle. I'm gonna clear up some space. Here. And the egg is about done. Now I said slotted spoon, but I have a little, what we call a spider here. And I'm just gonna dip it in and go under the egg and lift it out. It's nice because it can drain off. If you have a lot of water on here, if you want to put it on a little towel to dampen that off, that's fine. I usually just put it on in a bowl or in a plate to hold onto it for a moment. And then I've got this shallow bowl. And we have this beautiful, nice, stiff polenta. You can use, if you have any kind of forms or like cutters, thick cutters, you can always make your little cylinder if you want. I'm just gonna make a little pile here. So there's our polenta. That is a very thick, even creamy polenta. And then I'm going to spoon the sauteed veggies on top. Oh, I was gonna say, this is a recipe that I got from Good and Cheap. It is a free cookbook to download. it is based on a SNAP budget every day. And then our egg, you might need a spat for this process. The egg goes right on top there. Oh my goodness. And see, then what I didn't tell you before is once you crack open this yolk, that forms your sauce. So I'm gonna put these beautiful little microgreens. This is a mix that has broccoli, cabbage, kale, radish, and arugula sprouts in it. So it's gonna be a little spicy. There we go. And then just some other things just to show even more of the versatility of polenta.
Hey, T, do you want to turn the iPad so we can see the beautiful plating? Right now we're looking at the Cambro.
You are looking at the...
Is that what they're called? What is it called? Cambro, right?
Yes, yes.
Ooh, oh man.
I thought, here we go. There we go, yeah. I'm sorry you didn't get to see the plating of the egg, but it is kind of jiggly and wonderful. So that yolk is gonna be your sauce. Here is your soup. The other thing you can do, and I'm gonna show you this very quickly, right here, right under the camera, how about that, is I've got some of Salad Day's lovely greens. roasted sweet potatoes and some more of that squash from Elmwood. These are the little Japanese, the white sweet potatoes. Oh, they're so beautiful. And then our student Lucas roasted up some red onion today. So we got all this sweet caramelized stuff. And a little bit of just a plain mustard vinaigrette. And you're like, why are you making a salad when we're talking about polenta? Let me give this a little toss and some salt and pepper, and I'll show you. This around, you just want to coat with your vinaigrette. Actually, I might have gotten a little too much. Sprinkle of salt and pepper. Always. Now, I was on a garde manger at the Holly Hill Inn, and you never let a salad go without seasoning it. It's one of the things. So we're going to put this on here. Now, there are two ways that you can use polenta with a salad. And the reason I'm showing you this is now that we're kind of turning the corner into the growing season, these are some of the first things you're going to find. You're going to find salads. You're going to find microgreens. You're going to find these storage vegetables that have been here all winter. So I did manage to hack and grill a slice of polenta. This is that rough polenta. So you can serve it like that, or you can dredge little cubes of polenta in some seasoned flour and have croutons. So that's another way to do it. And then to get kids involved, if you're cooking with kids, you can slice polenta into fries and bake it. You just put a little oil on. You can top that with so a little bit of Parmesan cheese or some kind of marinara. That would be nice. So I'm gonna plate these up, and then the little discs, I'm calling, it's based on an Italian dish called pizzetta, which are tiny pizzas, basically. So I'm gonna put the fries over here. Just gonna stack those up. For the adults, maybe a little truffle oil might be just if you splurge on those kind of things. So there's our, but I also have these little rounds. And I have a lentil bolognese sauce over here. Maybe your kids would just prefer a plain tomato sauce. So it's kind of a winter tomato sauce. I don't have meat, I have lentils in here. So again, one way to eat meatless. Put that on. And the kids could like make their own little mini pizzas. So, and you could have some mozzarella. I still have the lovely Parmesan right here. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that on. Or you could even shave it with a peeler so that you get the big pieces. But this is why I wanted to show polenta. And I even like stopped short of everything I could show you with the polenta. So any questions at this point? Comments, things you have tried? Maybe I didn't cover everything.
Haven't seen anything there. I will note that I put a link to the Good and Cheap cookbook that Tanya mentioned. They have it in English and Spanish language and possibly some others. So it's a great resource. We can compile those to go out with the recipes and notes afterwards, yes. Along with the 6 seasons. Oh, Tanya, that spread looks incredible.
It's warming, it's inexpensive, it's easy to recreate. So these are the kinds of things that will continue to show in upcoming classes. Our next one, I believe, is on March 9th. And then be on the lookout because we have another Train the Trainer in April, a 2-day, so it'll be a week apart. So we show you how to do all of these cooking demos and classes. And we have a day for tech and we have a day for food. So that'll come in April.
Perfect. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to say about the CFA work? I see you're on video.
Well, I wanted to ask a clarifying question first. Chef Tanya, is that the same material that you covered in the fall for the Train the Trainers? Okay. Yes. So people who came to the fall wouldn't necessarily want to come to the ones in April.
Not necessarily. I mean, we're making a few improvements just based on suggestions, but yeah, it's pretty much the same basic material.
Yeah. So I would just quickly add that Community Farm Alliance is all about building our local food systems to promote our farm economies, and people knowing how to use things that are grown locally and seasonally are so important to part of that work. So we appreciate this.
Okay, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Laura. If anyone did cook along at home and wants to turn their video on and show us, we'd love to see. But I know people are in different spaces, so folks are just watching. But I think someone said their soup was smelling amazing, so I think we did have some cook at home happening.
Perfect.
Tanya, it's 460 North Limestone. That's where you can bring all of that amazing stuff you prepared. Otherwise, I think I'm having a microwave tamale for lunch. So
Okay.
it's corn, but it's not quite as delicious. If you have other ideas, thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Tisa. Thank you, Hazel. We miss having our in-person events too. Let us know when you try it out, Hazel, how it goes and what your daughter says. So if you have other thoughts on like, oh, this is a great staple ingredient, I'd like some more ideas to work with. And we're all about approachable, right? Meeting folks where that. Hi, Angela. Do you have something to show us?
I do. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I did get the soup.
Oh, that looks
beautiful.
Gorgeous.
I had some help from my husband because I couldn't keep up.
Well, you did a marvelous job. I mean, you're up when we're all up. So perfect.
That looks amazing. Let us know how it goes. So yeah, polenta might sound fancy, but it's grits just in another, it's grits Italian cousin. They're just coming to visit. So if you have other thoughts, please, we love this. We love these ideas. And heads up, we are having, if you're someone who is here for CURS credit, we have another opportunity coming up March 3rd. We're having a virtual local food systems summit. Information for that's on our webpage. Lots of folks working in local food across the spectrum. So I think it's 4 or 5 hours or so. So that's also available. And anything else, Tanya, before we get to our rumbly tumblies?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I had breakfast and I'm still having a hard time. My stomach's growling. But we do have a special event coming up at the end of the month as part of celebration of Black History Month. It is in cooperation with Chef Lawrence Weeks of Huntingwood, one of Weta Michael's restaurants. And we'll be having 2 guest chefs coming in from out of state. They're nationally known, but they will be featuring Geechee Angola cuisine of that region. And it will be on Saturday, February 27th. And you have the opportunity to either buy your own ingredients and cook along, or we are going to hand out little pre-made meal kits so that you'd have everything to make a serving or 2 of the recipe they're going to demo that day. That'll be a very exciting day. And we're about to start, once we get the link for sign up and registration on that, we're going to start pushing that out. So be sure to follow us on our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Perfect. I've got some questions for Kathy and Tisa about that. So I will stay on here a minute and post a link, but at UK Food Connect on all of the platforms, if you turn on notifications from us, you'll always know about classes and events, live stream demos, hands-on virtual like this, and when we get back to in-person, those sorts of things. So that's the most reliable way to find us. We also have a newsletter. And I'm trying to think the best way to do it. Yes,
I think on our website, or yeah.
So on our homepage, and let me get that link. I'm typoing. There's a way to sign up for our newsletter. We went quiet for a little bit because of the pandemic, but we're back up to having those. So that's a monthly copy link. So, and here in the chat is the link to get on our newsletter mailing list. So I think that's everything. All right. Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Kathy said it was her first time, so I'm so delighted to make a new friend. And I think we'll send out evaluations at some point. So let us know things that you'd like to see more of, less of, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes. Join us in the future.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Stop recording.